Have you ever felt like everyone saw you as less than you really were? They cut him from the school team. They said he wasn't good enough. So he decided no one was going to forget his name anymore. But what about you? How many times have you heard that you weren't fast enough, good enough, that maybe it would be better to give up? That there were more talented people, more prepared, more anything that weren't you? They didn't speak in those words. But the look said it all. The intonation, the silence, that feeling that you're just taking up space. There is pain that doesn't appear in the photos, not even on the resume. It's the pain of feeling invisible. Trying, and it seems like nothing changes. The pain of giving everything and still being ignored. The pain of being left out. Of being the last one to be chosen, or worse, of never being chosen. Michael Jordan knew this pain. And she didn't start on the NBA court. It started much earlier when he was still just a boy trying to find his place in the world. He was rejected for something that hurt deeply, not be seen as capable. And do you know what that does to someone? Destroys it from the inside. It makes us question everything. It makes us wonder if it's worth continuing. And that's where a lot of people stop. Silently. No audience. Just turn it off from the inside and continue in survival mode. But there is something that separates those who sink from those who decide to turn the tide. A decision. Invisible. Lonely. No applause. No likes. With no one believing. That kind of decision you make with your face still wet from crying. When you look in the mirror and decide, that won't stop me. Michael made that choice. And the world only found out later. Because in the beginning no one sees it. Nobody values the seed. Just the fruit. Have you ever had a moment like this? When everything seemed lost but you still followed. When they said it was the end, but something in you screamed that it was just the beginning. If you've ever felt ashamed of your own journey, if you've ever felt like disappearing and only returning after success, then this story is yours too. Because today you will discover the part of his journey that no one wants to tell, the part where he failed, where he was rejected, where he was discredited, and that's where it all started. Because it's when you bleed inside that you can decide to use that blood as ink. That's what he did. So stay with me until the end of this video. Because maybe you are in your team cut, and his story could be what reignites yours. If any part of this has made you swallow hard, comment below. I've been called slow too. This is more than a video, it's a mirror. Leave a like if this hit somewhere inside you. Subscribe to the channel because here you are not invisible. And now, it's time for the story to begin. Adolescent, passionate about basketball. He tries out for the school team and gets cut. The reason? Too short, too slow, not enough talent. He returned home in silence. The borrowed uniform was still wet with sweat. He didn't even look into his father's eyes. He went up to the room, locked the door, and cried. No noise, just the sound of uneven breathing trying to hide the pain. That day he felt something worse than losing. He felt like he wasn't seen. Not as a player. Not as someone with potential. He felt like the world was looking at him and seeing a mistake. He was 15 years old. But the pain was old. Ancient. He carried a hunger in his chest that no one saw. I wanted to be someone. I wanted to be remembered. I wanted to prove I was capable. But at that moment, everything seemed too far away. At school no one said anything. But the eyes spoke. You know that look of someone who saw you fail and doesn't know whether to feel sorry or relieved that it wasn't with him. You felt them all. Every look was a needle. And he walked through the corridors like someone begging to disappear. The coach didn't even explain it properly. I just said he wasn't ready. Just that. No conversation. No opportunity. No try again. It was as if they were saying, you don't have what it takes. And that's it. That was the first cut. But not the only one. They cut his name off the list. They cut self-esteem. They cut the chances. They cut the floor. In his room he looked at the ceiling and thought, is it true? Will I ever be good? Every thought was a stab to the soul. There was a night when he stayed there in silence, just listening to the noise of the cars outside. Thinking about giving up. Wondering if the world really needed another frustrated kid trying to play basketball. The worst part wasn't the pain of having failed. It was shame. Shame for having believed. Shame for having dreamed too big. Shame for having told others that I was going to make it. And now, he had to face his father. I had to face my friends. You had to face yourself. And all I saw in the mirror was someone who didn't make it. Days passed, and the pain didn't go away. It just changed location. It went down from the chest to the stomach. It became a weight, constant nausea, a silence that screamed inside. He tried to hide it. Laugh forced. He played during breaks. But inside, it was just empty. He had lost more than one spot on the team. He had lost the image he had of himself. He had lost the place where he deposited all his dreams. The court? Now it hurt just to look at it. The ball? He was still there, but he seemed to be laughed at every time he tried to throw. Too slow. These words echoed. Like a sentence. Like an invisible tattoo on your forehead. Nobody asked if he was okay. And he wouldn't know what to say either. Because how do you explain how you feel when the world tells you you're not enough? How do you explain that something inside broke, and no one saw it? He would wake up in the middle of the night with his heart racing, sweaty, as if falling. But it wasn't a dream. It was reality. And it hurt more than any nightmare. During this time, he began to walk with his shoulders hunched, talking less, dreaming less, there being less. And there were days when he asked himself, will I be stuck with this forever? I just wanted to be good. I just wish someone would say, it will pass. But no one said, and he stayed there, alone, with silence, with failure, with the bitter taste of not being chosen. It was in that space between pain and oblivion that something began to be born. But no one has seen it yet. Not yet. In the silence of the room, the pain still weighed in the air. The tears had already dried, but the shame still stuck to the skin like wet clothing that was impossible to take off. The team's cut looked small on the outside, but on the inside, it was as if a piece had been ripped out of it. It was late. Everyone slept. The dark, quiet house. Only the dim light from the lamp in the corner illuminated the old notebook on the table. Michael sat down. He stared at that blank sheet of paper as if it were a mirror. Inside, he was still the boy who wasn't chosen. But something there that night began to change. He took the pencil. Not to write. Not to teach lessons. But to make a promise. He drew a square. Simple. Crooked lines. Hoops at the ends. And right in the center, a tiny silhouette. A little dot. Next to it, he wrote in small handwriting, pressing hard on the paper, "They will regret not choosing me." He closed the notebook. He didn't show it to anyone. He hid it in the drawer under his clothes. It was just his. An unsent letter. A warning to the future. There, in that almost childish gesture, a decision was born. There was no audience. There was no overcoming music playing in the background. There was no one watching. But in that stuffy room, smelling of defeat, a fire began to light. A silent fire. Internal. The next morning he woke up early. Much earlier. The street was still gray, the world was silent. He put on his worn-out sneakers. Got the ball. It went out. Alone. The court was still wet from the serene. The erased lines. But he didn't care. He started throwing. I was wrong. I was wrong again. I was wrong once again. But it didn't stop. Because now, he no longer trained for a place on the team. I trained for something much deeper. By identity. For redemption. With every pitch, it wasn't the ball he threw. It was the feeling of not being enough. It was the coach's voice echoing that he wasn't fast enough. It was the muffled laughter of his colleagues. It was the disappointment hidden in his father's eyes. He didn't tell anyone. Not even for his brother. Not even for friends. Not even for mom. But inside he knew. It was different. The pain still hurt. But now she pushed. Every drop of sweat was a reminder. No one will do this for me. And it was like that. Day after day. In the cold. In the fine rain. In the heat that fried the ground. He trained. While the others rested, he sweated. While others laughed, he counted pitches. While the world was forgetting his name, he was carving that name into his own blood. It wasn't about showing. It was about being. It wasn't about proving it to them. It was about proving to himself that that voice inside him, the one that said, "You were born for this," wasn't wrong. And you know the craziest thing? Nobody saw it. No one noticed that the rejected boy was becoming an obsession machine. The school remained the same. His colleagues still didn't remember his name. But inside, something was no longer the same. If you've ever lived through a night like this, a silent promise, an invisible decision, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't experienced it yet, maybe this video is the beginning. If you feel like this is touching something of yours, subscribe to the channel now. Because here we tell stories like yours. Stories of those who decide in the dark, and then shine in the light. And now, hold on tight. Because the world will start to realize what he has become. And you won't be able to ignore it. The ball still bounced the same. The rim was the same. The uniform more fitted. But now, when Michael stepped onto the court, he was no longer just a kid trying to prove a point. The era, the threat. His presence spoke before the whistle. The eyes followed each step. The public already knew that something different was going to happen. The boy who was cut from the school team became the name that filled entire stands. But no one there knew about the notebook hidden in the drawer. Nobody saw the drawing with the crooked lines of the poorly made court. They only saw the result. And the result was impressive. He entered the NBA in 1984, drafted by the Chicago Bulls. First season. 28.2 points per game. The critic who said he wasn't fast now called him explosive. The press that ignored him now couldn't stop saying his name. But the strongest part wasn't what he did with the ball. It was the look. A look that said, "I've been on the other side. And I'm never going back there again." He became the face of the league. 5-time MVP. 6 NBA titles. 2 third championships. Games where it seemed like you were defying gravity. Throws that looked like poetry in slow motion. And even so, he still trained like someone who was trying to get a spot. Because for him, it was never just about winning. It was about never be forgotten. Every time he stepped onto the court, it was as if he said with his body what he shouted in silence that night. "Thank you for not believing. You gave me a reason to never stop." He won. But not with luck. Not just with talent. He won with invisible discipline. With a pain that became fuel. With a pact that no one saw, but it changed everything. The press started calling it Air Jordan. Sneakers bearing his name sold millions. The children hung posters of him in their rooms. The whole world wanted to fly like him. But he remembered. I always remembered. From the day it was cut. From the day he cried in secret. From the day he drew a block in silence and promised he would return. And he came back. Came back bigger. It came back impossible to ignore. The same people who said he wasn't good were now clapping. The same people who left him out now wanted his signature. The rejected boy became synonymous with excellence. And do you know what hurt the most, and at the same time freed the most? This all started with a no. With a cut. With a dark room and a broken heart. It started out invisible. Therefore, if today the world sees the shine, it is because one day it decided not to turn off its own light. And if you're watching this far, it's because maybe something inside you is also lighting up. Maybe you are in your own dark room. In your cut. In your humiliation. But remember, all light begins in the dark. If this moved you, leave a like now and subscribe to the channel. Because your story can also become a legend. And the next part is about what you will do with it. And you? What are you going to do with the no they gave you? Because maybe your team cut wasn't in sports. Maybe it was when they didn't choose you for that job opening. When they said you didn't have the profile. When they ignored you in a meeting. When a person you trusted looked you in the eye and made you feel like you would never be enough. Or maybe your cut came indoors. When your parents never said they were proud. When you tried to explain your dreams and they called you crazy. When you were discredited not with words, but with silence. And he had to swallow everything quietly, pretending it didn't hurt that much. Tell me, do you still remember the moment you started to discredit yourself? There comes a day when we stop telling someone what we dream about, because we get tired of being interrupted. Tired of being diminished. You get tired of appearing fragile because you dream too big. And it is in this silence that many people give up. It goes off. It's adjusting. It adapts to what they expect. And little by little, it ceases to exist. It becomes a shadow of one's own soul. But maybe, just maybe, this video has appeared now because your turnaround is ready to begin. Because even with everything you've been through, there's a part of you that still believes. And she's here paying attention to every word, feeling what's behind the story. And most importantly, recognizing yourself in it. Because Michael's story isn't just about basketball. It's about identity. About pain. About not accepting being invisible. About choosing not to delete. Even when everything around seems to point otherwise. And you? Is there anything still pulsing in there? Have you been wondering why nothing changes? Do you have that feeling that life is passing you by and you're just surviving? Have you been carrying the weight of not knowing where to start but still not wanting to stop? So listen, there's no need to start with applause. Not for sure. Not with everything resolved. Sometimes all you need is a moment of your own. A thought. A choice. A small gesture that only you will see, but that changes everything inside. It could be writing on a sheet of paper. It could be closing your eyes and promising yourself. It may just be accepting that your time has not yet passed. That your story is not over yet. The difference between being forgotten and being eternal is what you do in the silence. And if this touches you, comment below. My turnaround begins now. Write this down as a milestone. Like someone signing a pact with the future. Like someone who decides that the next chapter won't be written by anyone but you. Maybe no one will see this decision now. But one day, they will look at you and ask, how did you do that? And you will remember this video of this pain from that moment when everything started to turn around. Because yes, it all starts with the invisible. But the invisible is never weak. This is where power is born. And if you felt it, then you know. It's time. Comment here. What was the no that hurt the most, but that you know deep down was the beginning of something bigger? Write this answer as a reminder to yourself, like someone marking the exact point where the turning point began. Every comment here is a silent declaration of someone who will no longer accept being erased. And if this story touched something inside, leave a like now. This helps spread this message to more people who, like you, are also silent, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Subscribe to the channel. Because here we tell stories that don't appear on stage but are born in the dark. Real stories of those who decide in the invisible and transform everything afterwards. And in the next episode, you will learn about the journey of a woman who was told by 3 record companies that she had no future, that his voice wasn't enough. But she made a choice, a promise, and he decided that the world would listen, with or without support. Spoiler, this decision became a song. It became a stage. It became a global hit. I'll meet you there, because your story is just beginning.